Well, disruption, we are constantly told, the headlines are screaming disruption is now the name of the game. It's become a very mainstream, very front on a word. And when there are just so many spheres that are talking about disruption, why should it not be time for education to look at this as well? That's what we're looking at today, disrupting education, a very special panel with me. Let me introduce them right away. There's Sandeep Bapna, who's heading Khan Academy in India. Kabir Chadha, who's the boss for Coursera in India. There's Pranav Kothari. If you're familiar with Mindspark, you'd know him. There's educational initiatives in Mindspark. Again, someone who needs no introduction. Ashish Savan of the Central Square Foundation and also co-founder of Ashoka University. And Luis Miranda of the Global Advisory Board, U Chicago. Thanks all so much for taking our time to speak to us today. Ashish, first to you. Access and quality are two things that there's been so much hand-wringing and chest beating about in this country when you talk about education. We've been talking about it for the longest time. The glass, many would say, firmly half empty. They would even argue if it's half full in the first place when you talk about education. Do you believe that technology and the advent of technology and the wide use of it can finally make some tangible change to the story?
Given how poor the human capital is, the quality of teachers in India, I believe that EdTech will actually play a much more meaningful role in the Indian context than it would in the Western context or in a more developed context. So there's a great opportunity to get a lift. I mean, very recently, Professor Karthik Muralidharan, who has done research in education for the last 15 years, did an analysis of the Mindspark program and found that in his 15 years of work, this was the most effective tool in terms of improving learning outcomes, had the best results ever. And that, I think, is an indication of what is to come.
Right. Kabir, to you, there are all those who perhaps are still arguing whether we're ready to sort of move into these online classrooms. What are the numbers? Where are these students coming from? Are they largely urban, but our numbers sort of are beyond these urban centers? How do you sort of see that?
I think in the last year, we've seen a massive shift in a mentality for Indian learners to move online to find the skills that they're looking for. Right? And so, I can tell you about Coursera. We've grown more than double in terms of the number of people who are coming to us. And your question about where are they coming from, I think right now we're still getting folks who are reasonably well educated, who have definitely a college degree, if not at the very least a high school degree, who are coming, who can speak English, have a reasonable internet connection, and likely chances are they're either in a tier 1 or a tier 2 city today, right? And that's where we're getting the numbers. The future needs to be beyond that.
There's no arguing that we have to sort of ride on, say, Digital India. We have to ride on getting access to all those who need it beyond these big urban centers. Louis, as someone who said that you love joining the dots, help us do that exactly. How are we going to sort of get there?
If you look at it, the two sort of major changes which have facilitated this is on the telecom side. One, when telecom became, the mobile phone became cheaper than the landline, and secondly, when people moved from the desktop to the mobile phone. And I think that's what's going to be driving a lot. I've sort of been using Coursera for a long time. I've done about half a dozen courses on that, and it's been fantastic. The challenge we also have in India is that the gap is so wide. Teachers are not able to fill the gap because we don't have enough teachers. And there's also issues about the mixed quality of some of the teachers. I met some fantastic teachers in remote places like in Manipur and in Ladakh. But on average, it's been a challenge. So if you were to sort of scale that up significantly, the only way I see it is with technology.
6 courses from Coursera. No wonder you're talking about those big numbers. You know who you can thank. Right. Pranav, the point that's being made that you have a great teacher sitting in X part of the country, say Manipur, the point is that there's a student there in Chennai or somewhere on the outskirts there who should have access to that great quality teaching, not having to suffer absence of a teacher or someone who's not really up to scratch. But are we anywhere close to achieving this? Because it sounds perfect, and a country with our kind of challenges could really use it. But are we anywhere really close to achieving it, or how far are we?
I don't think so. I think right now a lot of the talk about teachers, is just the delivery side of it. We're not talking about the absorption side of it. So as a nation, we stress more about teachers teaching than we do about students learning. Absolutely. So I think a lot more research on, where are the students making mistakes? What are they not learning? Why are they not learning? And then building tools that remediate those gaps is what's important. I think technology has become a fancy word, and, if we just use technology in education for the fancifulness of a smart board, of a teacher assessment tool, that may not sort of necessarily work out. I mean, technology has to work on those areas where humans cannot. For example, teaching ethics, being a good citizen, facilitating group projects are something that only humans can do. But a lot of things around learning, algebra or reading is something that you can actually delegate to technology. And I think that's where, unparceling a little bit of what is it that technology can do that humans cannot, and playing on that would, I think, inch us closer to that.
Right, that's an important point, actually. Because when I did a quick poll at work before I got here on what people would like to know from this, and many people said, I want to know what is the tangible outcome that I should look for. Like, I want to see a tangible outcome. I'll sign up for this course for my child. I'm willing to pay whatever it is that they charge. But what is the tangible outcome? Then I want, because we're in a society now where it's 100% or nothing, then I want 100% or nothing. Otherwise, there's no paisa vasool. In this scenario, and this is the Indian scenario, really, there has to be paisa vasool, there has to be outcome, and we really value education. How do you see players like yourself?
When we talk about outcomes, one of the big levers would be how we can engage teachers and how we can improve teacher quality. But there is an interesting element there. World Bank did a study in some classrooms in 3 states in India and looked at what teachers were doing in a classroom. And what they found was only a quarter of the time was being spent on higher order learning activities. A lot of the other time was spent on administrative stuff in chalk and talk methods. And I think that's that provides us a very, very interesting way to leverage technology, which can make some of those tasks more automated, more easy to do, and free up the time. I mean, just imagine if you could even just double the time of a teacher focused on learning outcomes, what impact that it can have.
Traditionally, we haven't really spent enough time upskilling ourselves. So generations have gone past where we've got our degrees, we've got into our jobs, we've been happy, we perhaps have moved jobs, but we haven't spent time upskilling ourselves. Now you have a generation that's very keen to skill themselves. They're talking about break years, they're talking about figuring out what they want to do and then go for it. So is this really a very good time to look at, say, EdTech as a sector?
But if you look at what's the real crisis in India, it's down at the primary school level, at the middle school level, at the secondary school level. And there it's not just any form of technology. So I think the first era of technology we had, which was smart boards, and a number of companies went and rolled out technology. I think most research around the world shows that it's very passive and it doesn't work very effectively. What we need not just technology, but we need products that are pedagogically sound and that are personalized and adaptive, because that's what will really work in terms of improving learning outcomes for kids. And then if you can connect it back to the teacher or the parent, it's so much more powerful in terms of keeping the incentives, in terms of continuous learning on the platform.
Madam, if I could ask you, are we also looking at a time when parents and teachers, schools, beyond just the students, are open to the use of this technology? The fact that they know what they want, they know they're going to get it, and it's going to be something plus what they're already learning, what Google's offering, what books are offering. It's going to be something more. There's got to be like an added benefit.
I think what teachers need is, before I walk into my classroom, can I get a temperature check of where the children are? So let's say if I'm teaching fractions tomorrow, can I get samples of what students' errors are? Can I get what worldwide research says? Can I get examples of questions that sort of I can use in the classroom just in time? Typically, the teacher training that is happening in large-scale government is usually 10 days, once a year. And that's not very effective. There's too much sort of being thrown at them, not much absorption. And if I have to prepare for a class, 6 months later, no point giving me training that much earlier. So what teachers actually benefit with technology is something that they can use within the next few days, and is something that is very customized to their classroom.
Sandeep, one keeps hearing about personalizing it, about, you need to personalize it, you need to sort of target, it has to be tailor-made to you as far as possible. Explain to us how that is sort of possible. How do you sort of know the diversities of the students that you're looking at? How can one do that? How much of a challenge is it? Because you're talking about a bell curve, which means that there's enormous diversity.
Sure. I think, let me just talk a little bit about the Khan Academy product itself. I mean, it's known mostly for its videos. But there are personalized learning missions that one can do. And what you do is you pick up a subject, you answer a few questions, and the software picks up where you are and then helps create a path for you. So an example of that is what we have done in the US with SAT exam. So we've partnered with College Board, where when you take the preliminary SAT, once you link your account with College Board, all your scores come into Khan Academy's account, which gives us information about what your gaps are, where your strengths are, and then create a personalized learning path for you. And it's free, and that has a very powerful implication in leveling the field for everyone.
Right. Ashish, this is perhaps what, I don't think there's any doubt that everyone would agree that our generations need this. This is the kind of learning that we're looking at. But how do you see this in our present scenario, where, like I touched upon earlier, it's 100% or nothing to get into our top institutions, but there are cities devoted to just cracking competitive exams. The stress and is now just frightening. How do you see this with that?
I don't think that phenomenon is going to change. I think in that case, EdTech would just be supplementary tools that people could use, because when you have such high stakes exams, and if you can afford it, to get the human sort of face-to-face, and it's not just the instruction, it's the whole sort of pressure cooker that you're put in,
Absolutely.
the exercises you're given, all of that stuff, you're put on a certain, and this is true even with SAT test prep. I think the kids who can afford it are still going to go to it, even if Khan Academy is available. It's just what Khan Academy will do will provide access to a whole bunch of kids who couldn't afford that level of test prep. So I don't think that is going to change. And frankly, some of the best EdTech products shouldn't address that issue. They should really focus more on fundamental learning.
I see.
It's a marketing challenge as far as parents are concerned, as far as schools are concerned.
Right.
It's why you see it's easier to sell into middle school than into high school, because the stakes are so high in high school. But I think if you have a good product and you're focused on learning outcome improvement, then that should be your priority, as opposed to getting 2 extra percentage points on the CBSE exam.